There's beauty in slowing down and letting life seduce you. It has taken me a while to learn to appreciate slowing down every once in a while. It brings so many things into perspective. In fact, writing is one of the tools I employ to help me slow down and come down to earth, or as a friend of mine would like to say, falling out of your mind and into your body. I have observed in myself, and I'm sure many of you can relate, that it's very easy to get lost in your head, going through endless motions, scenarios in your head, stalling, through distractions, all geared towards avoidance of confrontation, a confrontation with ourselves. I love what Toni Morrison said in an interview about her book Beloved when asked, do you think it's possible for someone to forgive themselves even when they have done something absolutely terrible? She said, yes, it's called grace. At some point, you do. If you don't, you're in a cul-de-sac. But you have to go through the fire first. You have to experience the full fall into complete self-loathing in order to come around to something like the forgiving of oneself. It's when you skip responsibility, when you use a substitute emotion like guilt, which is of no use to anyone. But if you feel the real thing, which is shame, hatred, humiliation, and self loathing, that is the door. And if you go through that, then you can forgive yourself. So lately, it is this same fear of confrontation with myself that has been coming up frequently. It is important to note that this whole year has held a recurring theme of change for me and many of you, I'm sure. In fact, at the start of the year, this need for change and transformation had had such an impact on me that I ended up recording a podcast about, actually, it was my first podcast of the year, which I titled Creating Spaces. The theme being exactly that, creating spaces for newness that I want in my life, creating spaces for healing, creating spaces for more, creating spaces for change. Life was coming at me at such dizzying speeds that I was hardly able to keep up, shouting at the universe, calm the F down. Because what the hell was that? Imagine being bombarded with change after change after change. You've barely learned how to cope with one form of change in one area of your life, when another one is thrown in another way or in another area of your life, and another one just for effect. And while we're at it, why not sprinkle some everywhere? It was crazy. And I was going crazy, barely able to keep up. Life hits us all differently, and we all have our unique way of responding to life and its shifting nature. My initial response was to pile on the changes, trying to embrace all of them at once, be everything all at once, without realizing that this would be a recipe for burnout and borderline insanity. I was, in a way, forced to slow down. The slumps that I had been dreading are the very slumps that helped me gain some clarity, rest, and rejuvenate in order to have enough energy to move through it all. It was in these moments where I could no longer avoid facing myself, where I had to just come face to face with myself, that I found the most peace, or as Kenyans would like to say, kujitaka meeting. It was and still isn't easy to meet myself in this way, but best believe it is very worth it. So, letting life seduce you is a recipe that requires you to be steeped in the present moment. It requires you to be very mindful and selective of your thoughts, your actions, experiences, beliefs, etc., which you can only do when you slow down, take a breather from the fast paced world in which we're living in, and you tune in. I once had someone call us the microwave generation, meaning that we are a generation of people who want things quickly and have not yet learned the value of patience. The first time I heard the phrase microwave generation, I took offense because in my head, I was living by the saying, time flies. And combine that with the high societal and social expectations of our time, I believed that I needed to be all I needed to be right now because time was running out. I never once stopped to think of the belief I was holding on to by buying into this story that I had been told and that I had been telling myself. Beliefs of lack and limitation, buying into the lie that there isn't enough time to do everything, to have and experience all the things I want to experience. So I just kept getting substandard results by buying into this belief of lack and adding insult to injury. I was trying to do it all at once, which is a recipe for overwhelm. Scattered energy produces scattered results. So, in closing, there was another interview in which I listened to early in the year, It was of Amy Ora, who is a writer and a spiritual teacher, where she said, being perceived is terrifying, but being perceived is what will lead us to our blessings. Being perceived is what will lead us to opportunity that is greater than our imagination. And this really hit home for me. This also had several layers of interpretation. But when I first had it, I took it and ran with it, focusing primarily on being on the point of view that of putting myself out there, of that type of being seen. And it really helped a great deal, I'm not gonna lie. However, I've come to learn over the course of the year that being seen has levels to it. The most important aspect I've come to learn about being seen is that it's rarely about everyone else, and most, if not always, about you being able to see yourself. It always goes back to the confrontation with ourselves. That we have to go through this confrontation in order for us to experience any form of meaningful, sustainable change in our lives. Going through that door, we have to involve and engage ourselves every step of the way. Through it all, I've learned and continue to learn the value of giving yourself grace throughout the journey, which at its core requires patience and time. Just like a good meal takes time to prepare, so does your becoming. Let's keep working on ourselves and committing to finding ways to slowing down and allowing life to seduce us more and more each day. Catch you in the next one.